This is a color wheel. The solid triangle points to each of the primary colors. The primary colors are yellow, blue, and red. And any of the colors that you see in the whole world can be mixed by those three colors. So when you mix yellow and red, you get what's called a secondary color. So yellow and red make orange, red and blue make violet, blue and yellow make green, and then the tertiary colors are what you get when you mix a primary with a secondary. So yellow and orange make yellow-orange. The primary color always likes to be named first. So yellow and orange isn't orange-yellow, it's yellow-orange. Red and orange is red-orange. Violet and red is red-violet. Blue and violet is blue-violet. Blue and green is blue-green, and green and yellow is yellow-green. Okay? So when you're mixing this color wheel in watercolor, what you need to keep in mind is that colors have what's called a bias. Okay? So bias sometimes is associated with negative things, but all it really means is that you have a preference for one thing or another. So of course it's not good to be biased in real life against other people, but when it comes to color, it just means that it's going to make a better violet. So for example, alizarin crimson and cobalt blue will make a more true violet than if you mix phthalo blue with alizarin crimson. Not that it's wrong to mix these two together, it's just that it's not as vibrant of a violet. And then phthalo and cad yellow pale make the best green. You can kind of tell by looking at the color on the actual tube. This is cad yellow medium, and it has a more orangey hue to it. Cad yellow pale has a more of a greenish tint. Phthalo blue has a little bit more of a greenish tint than cobalt blue, so this looks more violet. It's got the violet bias. This one has a little bit more of a violet bias when you look at that next to the cad red medium. So I'm just going to label these really quickly. So I'm just going to go ahead and start putting my colors in. When you're using a tube watercolor, you don't need a ton of paint, but you do want to let the paint dry before you use it, generally. I'm not going to because I'm just now squeezing it into here, but you'll probably get your paint ready the day before you paint. You can always use wet watercolor out of a tube if you want to get a more vibrant color. Sometimes illustrators use it like that. There's another paint called gouache that is more of an opaque watercolor that they use that way. So interestingly enough, when you squeeze out the phthalo blue, and squeeze from the bottom, you guys, and don't, if this is tight, you want to gently try to open it. Don't really push it too hard or you might actually crack it open. But see, the cobalt blue actually looks darker on the label, but when you squeeze it out, the phthalo looks darker. So just be aware of that. This is phthalo blue, cobalt blue, alizarin crimson, cad red medium. If you need to label them, you can. Cad yellow, pale. Okay. I've used another yellow before. It's called gamboge for the orange bias. I'm going to move these. So where you put the actual paint on a palette is in these small little containers. Where you mix is right in here. With watercolor, it's always a transparent medium, so when you want something to get lighter when you're using transparency in watercolor, you don't add white to get a tint, and you don't add black to get the shade. You just use more water to get a lighter color. So anyway, I'm going to do a basic color mixing demonstration here. So let's go ahead and mix green first. So when you mix colors, you're always going to start with the lightest color. You guys, again, yours is going to be dry by the time you use it. I'm glad this is wet though, because it'll give you a little bit better idea what it looks like. And you don't need as much dark as you need the lighter color. Okay, so you can see how dark that got right from the get-go. So that's even darker than I want, because what I'm trying for is I want to get that really true green, but I'm not going to add yellow to make that lighter. You're always going to start with the lighter color. So make a new puddle of yellow, and then grab a little of the green and add it to the lighter color. Trust me, it'll take you forever to try to change that color if you don't do it this way, if you try adding the lighter. So that's a perfect green. I'm this scrap piece of paper. So that's a great primary green. Okay, now let me show you the difference when you mix the opposite color bias. So say I start with my CAD yellow medium, and I mix some of my cobalt blue with that. Can you see the difference in those colors? That's, let me put it on here. So this is almost like an avocado green. Now there's a lot of times where you're gonna want this color versus this color. But when we're doing a color wheel, what we're trying for is we're trying to get the most true green that we can. And we want something close to that. So phthalo blue and the CAD yellow pale make this. And then the opposite color bias, cobalt blue and CAD yellow medium, make that. So I'm gonna go ahead. Let's go ahead and go to the yellow. Let's go ahead and get orange going. So with orange, you want to take the one that has the orange bias, which is CAD yellow medium. Start a puddle. And then add a little bit of red. And you're going to get a nice true orange. Looks great. And then you want to get a pretty decent size, what we call puddle. So these are two of our secondary colors, green and orange. The next secondary color is violet. So like we talked about, cobalt blue, alizarin crimson make the best violet. These colors are pretty much close to the same hue or intensity, so I'm just going to do about half and half of each. Should work pretty good. These are your secondary colors, and when you make your tertiary colors, you're going to mix those back with your primary colors. So for example, I'm going to do yellow-orange. So I'm going to use the yellow with the orange bias. Take some of that, make a puddle. I'm going to grab a little bit of the orange that I made. This way, you guys, it'll be easier to make sure that you're getting different colors because you're using the same base. So you're going to use your puddle of the secondary color mixed with the primary color to make the tertiary color. So next, we want to do red-orange. So I have orange, it's a little bit lighter. Make sure that I'm using my CAD red medium, the correct bias. Add a little bit of red. And that's our red-orange. Okay, and then I'm going to go on to the next. So do them in groups. So we've done yellow, orange, and red, orange. Now we're going to do red, violet, and blue, violet. So I've got my violet. That's my core violet. I'm going to take my cobalt blue, do a puddle, add some of the violet to the blue. And that's going to be your blue violet. It's pretty close to what we mixed the first time, right? So that's blue violet. And then I'm going to make a red violet. And when I do my red violet, I'm going to start with my alizarin crimson, the correct color bias. And I'm going to add the violet to that crimson. great. And that's my red violet. And you're going to start with the Cad Yellow Pale because that has the green bias. Make a new puddle. Add some of your green to the yellow. And that's a pretty good green, yellow green. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our phthalo blue, which has the green bias, and we're going to add that to the green to create a blue-green. So that's blue-green. So now we have all of the colors on the color wheel.